Welcome to our legendary car series on the Shortansey channel. Today we're diving deep into a vehicle that isn't just a car, it's a cultural icon, really. A symbol of pure ingenuity and, let's be honest, a wonderfully eccentric piece of engineering. We're talking about the legendary Citroën 2CV. In this deep dive, we'll try to uncover its fascinating history, the truly unique development process that birthed it, its massive cultural significance, and the lasting impact it's had. So, let's unpack this journey from a humble vision to, well, an automotive legend.
Absolutely. It's a car that really has this reputation, a car like no other. It's often called the most intelligent application of minimalism ever to succeed as a car. And that alone tells you why it's worth talking about. It's more than just some quirky old vehicle. It's like a masterclass in purposeful design.
It really is.
Yeah.
When we talk about legendary cars, you often think speed, luxury, horsepower.
Oh, yeah.
But the 2CV just flips that whole idea on its head. Its story really kicks off back in the 1930s in rural France.
Right.
You have to picture it. Farmers were still, heavily reliant on horses and carts. Cars back then, they were just too cumbersome, too heavy, and frankly, pretty useless for navigating muddy fields or narrow country lanes.
Exactly. It was a real problem waiting for a solution. And what's quite modern about Citroën's approach, this was spearheaded by Vice President Pierre-Jules Boulanger, was their commitment to understanding the actual user. They did something pretty revolutionary for the time.
What's that?
Extensive market research. I mean, really extensive. Boulanger sent Jacques Duclos out for 5 months. He questioned over 10,000 people.
10,000. Wow.
Yeah, and they weren't just asking about car features. They asked about daily life, transport challenges, even what goods people were carrying. This super meticulous research confirmed Boulanger's idea. Rural France needed a completely different kind of vehicle. It really shows how user-centric design was baked in from the start, long before that became a buzzword.
Okay, so they understood the problem. They had the data. Then came the vision. In autumn 36, Boulanger gives his design brief to Maurice Broglie, head of the design office. And this wasn't just some technical spec sheet, was it? It sounds almost poetic. What did he actually ask for?
Oh, it's legendary stuff. He wanted a car capable of carrying 2 people.
Right.
And 50 kilos of potatoes.
50 kilos of potatoes, specifically.
Specifically potatoes. At 60 kilometers per hour, that's about 37 miles per hour. And here's the kicker, especially when fuel was precious. Use no more than 3 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers.
That's nearly 94 miles per gallon. That's incredible, even today.
Exactly. But there is more. He said it needed to be capable of running on the worst roads, of being driven by a debutante, so, a novice driver, and must be totally comfortable. And the final challenge, the price.
Ah, the price. How cheap did it have to be?
Less than a third of the 11CV Traction Avant, which was Citroën's flagship car then. This wasn't just about building a car, it was about radical accessibility, solving a very real human problem.
It's a staggering list,
Yeah.
especially that fuel economy. But there's one requirement that really stands out, almost sounds absurd, but it directly shaped a key feature.
You mean the famous egg test?
That's the one.
Yeah, it needed to be able to cross a field carrying a basket of eggs without breaking any. Now, that sounds simple, maybe even a bit silly, but it directly led to the 2CV's legendary long travel suspension. It's the system that uniquely connects the front and rear wheels, giving that remarkably soft, almost floating ride.
A perfect example of a practical need driving real innovation.
Absolutely. And speaking of innovation, the 2CV was also the first car actually designed around radial tires and released with them. Radials were a huge deal then, much better grip, comfort, lasted longer than the old bias ply types.
So armed with this incredibly specific, slightly eccentric brief, they start developing the Toute Petite Voiture, the TPV, or very small car.
Yeah.
Those early prototypes from 37 sound pretty basic, almost skeletal.
Oh, completely. We're talking an aluminum body and chassis, a canvas roof, canvas hammock-style seats, if you can believe it, even mica windows instead of glass.
Mica windows, wow.
Magnesium alloy wheels, too, empowered by a little 300cc BMW motorbike engine. Very minimalist. By late 37, they had about 20 of these prototypes built and undergoing really tough testing. Boulanger himself was often driving them.
And the tests, I heard Boulanger has some unique methods for checking things like comfort. The hat test.
Yes, the famous hat test. Boulanger was quite tall and apparently often wore a top hat. He'd sit in the mock-ups, and if his hat got knocked off, back to the drawing board.
Seriously, that's amazing.
It certainly contributed to the 2CV's unusual height, that distinctive profile. But they were thorough. Over 50 individual tests covering everything. Ease of servicing, driving characteristics. Really rigorous.
Beyond the practical, some early ideas sound, well, almost like science fiction. What were some of the wilder concepts they played with?
Oh, they really pushed the boat out initially, chasing that radical minimalism. Can you imagine body panels made of oilcloth?
Oilcloth, like for a tablecloth.
Pretty much. Or doors shaped like pivoting hemispheres. And maybe the most whimsical idea of all, using bioluminescent insects like fireflies for marker lights.
Fireflies for lights. You're kidding.
Nope. It sounds crazy, but it just shows how far they were willing to think outside the box, challenging every automotive convention to achieve absolute simplicity.
Incredible. But then reality bit hard. World War II, how did that completely derail things?
Yeah, the war changed everything. France declared war in September 39. Then came the occupation. Boulanger made an incredibly brave, very risky decision. He ordered all the prototypes and the 250 production-ready TPVs they'd built to be destroyed.
Destroyed? Why?
The fear was the Nazis would seize the design, like they did with the VW Beetle, and use it for military purposes. It was a real act of defiance. Amazingly, a few prototypes survived because they were hidden, some buried, one disguised as a pickup truck inside the Michelin factory, and 3 more were found decades later, like in the 90s, behind a brick wall at a test track.
That's incredible. So the war ends, the world's changed. Did they just dust off those hidden prototypes?
Right.
Or did the post-war economy force another big change?
A major redesign was needed. It's a great example of how constraints can actually drive innovation. Aluminum was suddenly incredibly expensive, so they had to shift from those lightweight prototypes to mostly steel. They used flat panels, which were much cheaper and easier to produce.
This is heavier then.
Heavier. But this challenge also brought in new talent. In 41, Walter Becchia designed the new air-cooled engine. He did it in just 6 days, which is astonishing. And he cleverly developed a 4-speed gearbox when they only asked for 3. He argued the 4th gear was crucial as an overdrive.
To help with the extra weight from the steel.
Exactly, to make sure it could still hit those original performance and, crucially, fuel economy targets.
So after all that, the secret development, the radical ideas, the war, the redesign, it finally makes its debut. Paris Salon, 1948. How did the world react? Not with universal praise, I gather.
Oh, far from it. The initial reaction from the public and press was mostly bewilderment and even mockery. It got heavily criticized. Journalists were making jokes like, does it come with a can opener?
Ouch.
A British reporter talked about its masochistic fervor for austerity. It was seen as a bit of a motoring joke, honestly. Such a stark contrast to the sleeker, more conventional cars on show. It was a real clash of philosophies, what a car should be versus Boulanger's pure functionalism.
But despite the critics, the French public actually got it, didn't they? They embraced it.
They really did. They valued its, as one writer put it, indecent verve and remarkable economy. It just met their needs perfectly. Take a later model, like the 2CV6 from 1975. It had a 6-liter 2cc engine, only about 28.5 horsepower.
Tiny.
Yeah, tiny. People expected it to be painfully slow, but it could actually manage about 69 mil per hour flat out. But the real win was fuel economy. Often over 60 miles per gallon. Even cruising at 60 mil per hour, it could return 44 mil per hour. That's efficiency born from smart, lightweight design.
And that brings us to the driving experience. That ride quality is legendary. That egg test suspension must have made it amazing on bad roads.
Oh, incredible. That long travel suspension just soaked up terrible surfaces, potholes, bumps. It felt like you were floating. Really revolutionary for a cheap car back then. Then there's the unique push-pull gear change on the dashboard.
Ah, yes, the umbrella handle.
Exactly. It could definitely confuse newcomers, but once you got the knack, it was quite clever. You could easily shift between first and reverse for parking or second and third around town, but, it had its quirks. The windscreen was quite shallow, limited view, and the single-speed wipers were, well, let's just say not great in heavy rain. Charming compromises.
So definitely divided opinion, but those quirks, that simplicity, it fostered a really strong owner community, right?
Yeah.
The flaws almost became virtues.
They absolutely did. Yeah, it was noisy at speed, mostly wind noise, whistling through gaps. You often couldn't hear the engine over it. But because it was so simple mechanically, it fostered this amazing DIY culture. It was the perfect student car. Everything was accessible, easy to fix. Owners loved that you could just lift the back seat out for more space. The engine was so light you could practically lift it out yourself. It created a real bond, empowering people.
And this simple, tough little car became more than just transport. It really embedded itself in popular culture. Where did it make its biggest splash?
Oh, definitely in films. You can't talk about the 2CV without mentioning James Bond. for your eyes only.
The yellow one.
The bright yellow 2CV6. It had a souped-up engine from a Citroën GS for the film, mind you, but it held its own in that crazy chase scene down the olive groves, bouncing off things, showing surprising toughness against the bad guys' Peugeots. Citroën even cashed in with a special 007 edition, complete with stick-on bullet holes.
Brilliant. And other films, too.
Yeah, it popped up in things like American Graffiti, just perfectly capturing that everyday, slightly quirky vibe. It became a shorthand for a certain kind of character or setting.
And it wasn't just the one model, was it? The 2CV platform spawned a whole family, the E-Series.
That's right. There was the Dyane, often had a hatchback, a bit more conventional looking perhaps, and the Méhari, that cool, rugged, almost beach buggy-like thing with the plastic body, super lightweight. And what's really amazing are the independent 4x4 conversions people built. Some were apparently so capable they beat a Land Rover Defender in off-road tests on a TV show.
No, wait. A 2CV-based 4x4 beating a Land Rover.
Reportedly. It just shows the versatility of that basic design. And you had fun special editions, too, like the I Fly Bleifrei in Germany, meaning it ran on unleaded fuel, or the brilliant Sassante, literally quick duck, poking fun at its leisurely acceleration.
So summing up its legacy, it was initially mocked, designed for a very specific need, yet it had this incredibly long production run.
Astonishingly long. From 1948 right through until 1990, when the last one rolled off the line in Portugal, over 3.8 million of the 2CV saloons were built. And if you count the whole A-Series family, it's over 9 million units. That puts it in rare company, like the VW Beetle, cars that stayed in production fundamentally unchanged for over 4 decades. A real testament to getting the basics absolutely right.
So looking back, that remorseless rationality, that perfect minimalism, what does it mean for us today? What's the takeaway?
I think it encourages us to value simplicity, resilience, function over just adding more complexity, more luxury, especially now when things seem to get more complicated all the time.
Right. It shows that real innovation isn't always about more tech or more power.
Exactly. Sometimes it's about intelligent subtraction, stripping things down to the essential core. A car designed with such clarity of purpose can become more than just transport. It becomes, like the 2CV did, a cultural symbol, a symbol of what truly matters.
So in an age of increasingly complex, digital, often very expensive cars, what can we really learn from a vehicle designed, fundamentally, to carry 2 farmers and a sack of potatoes across a muddy field without breaking a basket of eggs? What does that tell us about what makes a car truly legendary? Maybe it's not just horsepower or fancy features. Maybe it's about freedom, ingenuity, and that sort of joyful, unpretentious connection to the road it represented. A fascinating thought. Yes, we have come to the end of our Short Tansy podcast today. Don't forget to subscribe to Short Tansy channel and like our video. See you in the next episode.